Welcome back to Satisfactory. Now I am very excited about this new fluids update because it has opened several new opportunities for me that I didn't even consider. Now what we're going to do today is complete the massive refinery, and most of the stuff that you see in here, this is still on old belts, and I would really like to change both the belts to a proper speed, but I think that I'm actually going to have to consider rebuilding the entire area, because if you look at the... no, I don't have the minimap because I'm on experimental, so I don't have that mod right now. But the thing here is this space is quite inefficient, and that's what I want to do something about, in particular with regards to the factory floor that I have underneath the other factory floor up there, where I have the manufacturers that are producing the heavy modular frames and stuff like that. And I'm also wondering if I should go up 2 more levels, because I'm going to need to route several products. My apologies. I'm going to have to route several products underneath the factory floor in terms of the belts and so forth. So that's the thing that I'm wondering about, or the things that I'm wondering about. Well, I do know that I want to reorganize this factory floor here, preferably if I can move the stuff underneath the upper factory floor out here. That would be great. It will cause a disparity if I do move that factory floor up 2 levels. That is 2 half ramps. But at the same time, the disparity is only with the train station, so what I can do there is simply just have a walkway from the train station, which is behind over there. So yeah, that's definitely on the menu, but I don't think that there is any point of me restructuring this old basic stuff in a recording. But I am most likely not going to record until after you guys have seen this. So if there are any highlights that you would want me to show from such an organization or reorganization, feel free to let me know, but I feel that the best thing is that I just do that off camera. It gives me the opportunity to relax while I do it as well. And when I do it like that, I can explain what I've done, why I've done it, and it'll still be the same product that I'm making. I can also take a look at the products that I am currently producing and decide whether or not it is actually useful for me to have as many or as few of the manufacturers, whether that is an assembler, constructor, or manufacturer, in question before we continue on. Now, what I have been doing here is I've built the power poles, but I haven't connected them up to the refineries, so I do apologize that there will be a fair amount of power pole connection in this episode. Also, as I have mentioned before, I am not very concerned with clipping when it comes to power lines inside factory areas like this. With a new update, there are a lot of things you can do to avoid clipping. Like I could, for instance, I'm actually lucky here because I don't get any clipping here, but I am going to get clipping inside of this massive line of refineries, because this is just one of the level of the belts, and I am absolutely certain it'll clip through... Well, actually no, because I don't think I have anything on level 4, which should be the level it would clip on. And that would be 8 meters. Anyways, where was I? I lost my train of thought there. Yeah. Okay, well, not getting it back, so that's just going to be as it is. The refinery part that we're working on now is the part of the refinery that's responsible for bottling the water, so that we package that neatly for our next part, which would be the diluted fuel. We'll power up these things one row by one in the order that they are used. And lastly, we will have to seed the part of the factory that is responsible for recycling the plastic and the rubber with plastic and rubber. Let's connect up this. Now I'm going to have to disconnect that power line, that power line, and this power line. I believe I have all of the power lines necessary here. I have also seeded the containers here with empty canisters, and I'm very certain that I have way too many empty canisters in each of these. But then again, there's going to be... Actually, I don't have too many canisters, I'm going to need more. These are going to hold a grand total of 4,000 canisters, and that's not counting the ones on the belt. So I'm going to have to seed these at least one more time, maybe 2 more times, now that I think about it. Because I might even have to see them 3 more times, because the diluted packaged fuel are going to hold 100 of the packaged water. Geesh, that was a lot more than I thought. Oh well. No matter. I have plenty of these packaged bottles, or these fuel containers anyway. Now, as I mentioned in the last episode, I would normally have been building this here and the power line would not have been clipping, but I'm going to have to go one out, because otherwise it will clip. Let's just make sure that we get this on the right angle of each of these. Why do I have a power pole there? Yeah, that's an example of what I mean by the clipping. We don't particularly want the clipping. These are powered up, I think. Yep, they are. Let's remove this one and that one. And then we'll connect that one to there, that one to there, and then connect that up to this so that that one is powered. We will not connect these up yet. This one is to have an additional line of power in. And I believe that should be here. Yeah, you can see it is barely not clipping. I don't mind the clipping when it's inside of a production line, because I'm not going in there anyways unless it's some kind of emergency. But everything that is visual on the outside, I prefer to avoid clipping. Okay, let's connect these up. Boom. Now they're grabbing the canisters and the water. Why does this... Ah, it's trying. It's giving it as much as it can. The water extractors underneath us have started up as well. Now, as I mentioned in the last episode, this is, as I hope was as expected, this is a Megabase setup for recycled plastic and recycled rubber. What I want to do here is saturate the belt with the packaged water before I move on to the next part. I'm just checking that all of them are working. That is a fairly important part of setting it up. Let's see how much is left in here. Yeah, it's emptying out quickly. That autosave is getting very slow. Yep, all of them working. Excellent. So we want to saturate the belt with the packaged water, which also involves saturating the machines. We want it to have 100 parts, or 99, depending on its output. So the belts are saturated, since the lifts are now standing still, so it's just a matter of saturating the machines now. And that's going to take a little while, but not too long, I think. Meanwhile, I can explain the system of the water bottles. The packaged water is going down on level 5, that is 10 meters, and they are funneled down on their own on this Mark 5 belt, obviously, all the way down behind the refineries that are responsible for making the diluted fuel. Now these already get the heavy oil residue through the pipelines going underneath here, where I'm using the valves to make sure that the heavy oil residue should reside in this side of the pipeline. And I'm curious to see if that's going to work or not, because I have no idea. But we'll figure that one out quickly enough. So the next thing we can do now, to expedite things, I don't really need the saturation to happen, and I don't feel like pausing right now. Let's power up the refineries doing diluted fuel, and we'll do that by actually powering up the power line as well. And by the time we return here, these belts should be fully saturated with canisters of fuel. When you build this, I think that was my train of thought earlier, you definitely don't need to build a layout this big. The reason why I've built it this big is because of the Megabase thing, but also because I remember that I was doing something in my, because I had half of this in my, that's the wrong connection, in my previous playthrough, which I did just after update 3 hit. I had half of this production, so I was making 1200 of each recycled plastic and recycled rubber, but half of the products go into the loop, or the chain, where half of it goes, like half of the recycled plastic goes into making recycled rubber, and half of the recycled rubber goes into making recycled plastic. But the thing there is, I doubled it this time, because in the last playthrough I remember very distinctly that I capped. And by capped I mean that I had something that I produced that required 600 rubber. So I had to build some additional refineries using the basic rubber recipe, because I had built the refinery in such a manner that I could not expand it. I didn't have room to expand on this chain. Here I do have room to expand on the chain, albeit I would have to build the heavy oil refiners behind the heavy oil refiners and do some creative pipe work, but that is the reason why I've built it so large. But what you should know is that it will suffice. If you want 300 plastic, you can just go with 10. So a chain of 10 of the... Oh, I need to watch the new animation here. Ah. That's definitely fuel, yes. And that looks so cool. Yeah, where was I? Yeah, you can build 10. So, one full pipeline of crude oil is sufficient to run 13.33 refineries and packagers doing what we're doing here. This is going to be an issue. I'm going to have to... Can I connect... I don't think I can connect that all the way over there. Wire's too long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's put one at the middle of this. There. And then we can connect up these. I've left this line, as I mentioned. Yeah, okay, so that clips. But that's fine. I've left this line to benefit those who are not on the experimental build and want to see how to do this with the old refineries until the experimental build with the new fluids update is pushed out to the regular early access branch. It's basically the same thing, you just use refineries instead of packagers in the chain. Okay, now these have been powered up. We should see fuel canisters being transported. Empty canisters, I mean, and fuel should be going down. Good. And we can continue here. Man, I'm being distracted all the time. Let me just start that over again. So, 1 line of crude oil is sufficient to run 13.33 refiners, making the heavy oil residue. For simplicity's sake, I recommend just doing it in tens. Or you can have 1.5 pipeline for doing 20. So, or 1 point something pipeline. So the point there is doing 10, you get simple and neat numbers to deal with, which is going to be, why is this starting up? Hello? Why are you not doing anything? Aha! Unpackaged fuel. Let me set the recipes. So when you do that, you get nice and simple lines of 10 that you can deal with instead of 13 point something. You could do 13, I mean, if you ignore the point 33, although the 33 would mean that the 4th line would then be 14. So that's why I've done it the way I have. I keep it in tens, and it's much more manageable in terms of the pipelines as well. Although with the new Mark II pipes, that is not such a huge concern, because one one Mark II pipeline is actually sufficient to power up or to fuel, I suppose, 20. No, 10. Because the unpackagers, they create 60 fuel. So either 5, like I have done under here. I have a pipeline going this under here, which is a Mark II pipeline, and each of and that pipeline is then funneled over to 5 of these and 5 of these. I don't know if this is going to work yet. That's going to be the most interesting part. Does this work? I don't know. Why do I have a power line there? Well, I suppose I can connect up there and connect up there so that I have a backup. Okay, the next one in the chain now would be the recycled parts. Right. Before we do that, let's check if I have to reseed these. No. Well, actually, I think I will have to. Let's go get the car. The chain looks very complex. It looks very complicated, but in all honesty, except for the mathematics messing a great deal with my brain in the beginning, I feel very comfortable with this now. It is not as complicated as it looks at all. It just requires multiple steps to get to your end goal. But the rewards for doing it this way is far more plastic and rubber than you can get out of the regular recipes, like a lot more. So this is much more efficient than using the basic plastic recipes and rubber recipes. I do not remember exactly how much more efficient it is, but it is definitely more efficient, that is for sure. Store all, store all, store all, and let's grab... this isn't full yet. Let's grab a full container of these. I wonder if it's possible to drive in there. Looks risky. It is possible. Barely. Here we are. And store all. Driving backwards is not my forte. Let's turn the car around, shall we? I keep mixing up which way to turn the wheels when I'm driving backwards, so that is not ideal at all. I think that was the first row. Yep. Take all. Take all. I don't think we can seed all of them because I don't think I have enough canisters. Store all? No. Take all. I need to do this properly so that I get the exact amount I'm supposed to get. There we go. And then take all. So I'm going to have to seed the last two in between episodes, but that's not a big problem. I will go by the numbers, and I will also explain the lines and stuff like that when I'm done with the seeding part, because the seeding part is fairly important here. Let's drive out so that we can just move on out of here. Then we seed this. And now we go and we need 40... I don't want to power up the rubber and plastic recyclers before I have enough. I wonder if I can put things in there with them unpowered. I think I'm going to go grab some cable and bring that with me just to be certain so that I don't have to go back here. So let's go get some cable. That should be in here. 200 should suffice. Then we need to go here. And I hope this container has enough plastic now. Yes, it does. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. So we need to put 4 back. And then divide or split all of these. I actually think that should do the trick, now that I consider it more carefully. If I seed all of the recycled rubber, that should actually do the trick. I shouldn't need to seed the ones doing recycled plastic with rubber, now that I consider it. Oh, I'm out of fuel. Let's put in a stack of fuel instead of using the carbon. Okay, this one is the recycled plastic. This, I should have left one more space in here because this is messy. Can I put this here? Yes, I can. Then I'm going to do it like that. I'm going to go down and seed every single one of them. One thing that I haven't talked about earlier in this series, or any of my series actually, is the usage of priority splitters. I am using priority splitters on this refinery, and I'm also using priority splitters out at the aluminium outpost, because when the power broke down, the silica backlogged in the aluminium or alumina solution plants. Either that or the silica overflowed because I was getting too much silica from the belt with from the train station, and didn't really consider the fact that I think that's the real reason, not the power break. So I had to go out there and make a priority splitting system so that any excess silica from the alkyd alumina, no, not the alkyd, the alumina solution refiners those have a priority splitter that sends off the excess silica to sink. And I will explain the priority splitter as soon as we get to the end of this line, I think. The autosave is incoming. Takes so long. Although I haven't mentioned this, I have in the Discord server, I have asked people if they want to send me their factories, so that I can have a look at them and maybe feature some of them on my channel. And some of the factories that I received, the autosave here is nothing in comparison to that. I think one of them took like 30 seconds for each autosave, so when I'm featuring factories like that, I'm going to have to turn off the autosave. And loading the game took minutes, and that is from an M2 NVMe PCIe SSD with write speeds like write and read speeds above 4,000. That is theoretical, of course, but still, as far as I know, the Satisfactory, or it's not as far as I know that this is a fact, the Satisfactory save games are actually JSON files. I don't know if there's a more appropriate way to say that for nerdy programmers, but that is what it is anyways. So decompiling or looking in the save files is actually not a big issue. Quite easy actually for people who know what they're looking at. Which is also why the Satisfactory calculator map works as efficiently as it does, because what it does is just extracting the JSON information and showing it on the map. Though I don't envy the developer of that site the work that must have been put into the fuel is coming in slowly. This is something that I'm going to have to look at, whether it's... Yeah, it is quick enough. This works. Okay, so rubber is being made here. Yeah, as I was saying, I don't envy the guy who programmed that map, having to figure out the coordinates and stuff like that. That must have been quite the job. Okay, so the rubber here is going up on that level. Yeah, I did a mistake here. That's a shame. I should actually have seeded the plastic, because the rubber isn't... Or is it? It is! I did it the correct way. Up there is a smart splitter. That smart splitter is set to do... I have one all the way over there, but let's just do this here. Ladder. I don't have iron rods because I put them... let's go over to the end here. Humpty Dumpty Dump. I'm glad to see that there is rubber coming into all of these. Means that everything is working as intended, which is exactly what I was hoping for. So let's climb up this ladder and have a look at the smart splitter. The center output, that is the output that's going out of the refinery area, is set to overflow, which means that any excess rubber that cannot go into the right output, which is set to any, will be sent in the center output. But as long as there is room in the right output, that is, that the refineries behind here are actually using that rubber, the belt leading out from here will not receive any rubber. So by using a priority split like that, I ensure that there is always enough rubber to produce recycled plastic, and that nothing gets messed up by too much product being sent out of the refinery. I have one of those on each of these. That is also a priority splitter. You can see the difference because it has a much more distinct look, both on the underside and also the light that is there. So that was a very, very good way of dealing with this. Now finally, let us power up this row of refiners which are making recycled plastic. And the way I did this was simply just sending the rubber that's coming from the first refinery. I just sent it down in a manifold. There's 600 being produced in each. Then that's being sent here, and each of these will receive rubber to make more recycled plastic. And due to how a manifold works, these will always take priority over the belt going out of the facility. So I have used both of the methods available to me to ensure that the factory is, or the refinery is receiving what it's supposed to receive to be able to do its job. And at the same time, I also get the excess amount out. Now with 40 of these refineries, which I do require 30 heavy oil residue refineries to fuel, or rather to make the fuel from, I didn't know that was possible. Okay. But it can't have more than one connection, can it? No, it can't. But I am producing 2,400 rubber and 2,400... Oh, I forgot to put power up the line. 2,400 rubber and 2,400 plastic in total. And 1,200 of each is going into the opposite. So 1,200 rubber is going to make recycled plastic, and 1,200 recycled plastic is going to make 1,200 rubber. It's a funny little loop, this. But the rest of it, that is 1,200 plastic and 1,200 rubber, is going out of the refinery and into our nice stockpiles. So I'm going to have a lot of spare rubber and plastic, and that was my intent with this facility. And if I remember correctly, I needed a lot more rubber than I needed plastic in that other base. So I might even put up an additional row or two of recycled rubber only. Because I don't think I ever needed 600 plastic, but I definitely needed 600 rubber for something. I don't remember what it was. So here we are. Everything is now powered up. And these should now be producing recycled plastic. And that plastic, as I have explained, will go back into the loop and make recycled rubber. And everything here should then, due to the priority splitter, now that these are accepting rubber from the belts, everything here should then get up to the maximum capacity before it starts sending rubber and plastic out into the world. A few minor points of interest that I've done here that I feel is important. You cannot have the output products when you have 40 of these go on one belt, obviously, since each belt takes then 600 and the max capacity of the Mark V belt is 780. So you need two belts to go into the main factory. I'm not sure how I'm going to merge those. I might have one belt with 780 and one belt with 420. But it depends. I think that I'm going to have two belts of 600 actually. But that meant that I had to pay attention to the levels that I build things on in terms of belts, which is why some of these are very, very high up, which is something that I want to avoid at all costs. But since it's isolated to inside of here, and well, there are some at the back side, as you may have noticed earlier, I am going to use lifts to get them to the correct levels before funneling them into the base. And that also requires me to redo the belts going into the base and the pipeline with a heavy oil residue for the cable. I've already started that work and it looks absolutely horrible currently, but we'll take a quick look at it afterwards. So on level 4, that's level 4. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, actually that's level 5. I mean, on level 4, this is level 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be 8 meters above the ground. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Each of these are 2 meters tall. On that level, I am using... that level is reserved for empty canisters. But so is level 6. Because I need the empty canisters coming back from the unpackaging facilities to get back into this container here. For obvious reasons. So level 4 and 6 is reserved for empty canisters. Level 7 is reserved for the packaged water. I really like the graphics of these. They look kind of cool. And those go down to where they're supposed to go. And then we have level 7 and 8. Those are reserved for respectively rubber and plastic. But for the 2 first rows of refineries in the distance here. So the refinery 1 to 20 use level 7 for rubber and level 8 for plastic. And then refinery number 21 to 40 are using level 9 and 10 for the rubber and plastic respectively. I probably should remove this now because I don't need this anymore. This was left here so that I could show you the priority splitter. I really like these. I also really like the new refinery models. They are very, very nice. The only thing that is a bit annoying is the clipping that happens with the power lines. And also, those things definitely will clip with one another if you build them too close to one another. So, you should only build those if you're close, because I think this is too close actually. I think they will clip here. But I also think that the new model means that you can place them one closer to one another as well, which will definitely mean that they clip. I'm not sure if they clip now, because I have never seen them vent at the same time. So, here you can see the... these are from line 30 to 39 and 40 to... Sorry. Yeah. 30. Okay, so level from 1 to 19, I meant, was on... Oh, it's 21 to 40. So this is 21 to 40 is coming on these two. They are being merged there and then sent down this way. And 1 to 19 are on the 2 lower belts over there. That is coming out from in between there. And I have everything except for the packaged water. I couldn't put the packaged water on the same conveyor pole due to the fact that I needed the lift at the end of each of these for the empty canisters. Because I needed that to be able to go above the container, and I couldn't do that thanks to that lift. I probably could have mixed up things here and done it differently. I could have probably maybe have gone down and around, but I don't mind having 2 rows of belts here. So all of this is now working, and our power consumption is now up to around 6,000 megawatts, but that's barely 1/4 of our total capacity, so not too worried. It's a little above, since 24 would be 4 times as much. But that is also one of the reasons why I built that massive power generation facility, because I wanted to make sure that I did not run out of power this time. It's so annoying when you do. So this stuff is going to be doing its job, and while this is working, as it should now, I will replace the row of refineries over there with packaging facilities, and I will also replace the row of water packaging refineries with the packager facility, I think. I'm not sure. Depends on that pipe thing, with the input being above and so forth. Let's have a quick journey over to the... yeah, this part here is what I mean. That pipeline needs to be rearranged. It needs to go on its own line out. I want the belts to be on one, and I want the pipe to be on another one. Maybe I'll put the pipe underneath the belts at level 3 there, or rather 6 meters above. I'm not sure. But I need to do something there. There's also a clipping going on up there in the wall. I haven't really minded, but I need to fix that as well. And then we have the part of the... I've already done some work here. You can see I've separated out the pipeline so that it's no longer moving on the same conveyor stack as the belts. And in addition to that, I've made a new entryway for it into the base using a Mark II pump instead of a Mark I pump, so I can have a pump down here, and that is sufficient to get it all the way up there without problem at all. Probably I could get it much higher. The one thing that I've been wondering is if I should just make a pipe conveyor here and then do a vertical pipe all the way up so that I don't get this weird bendy thing. But I'm going to be looking at that. So you can see I have some floating belts here, because the plan is that these belts are going to come down here instead, so that I get straight angles for this. Not necessarily because of, or actually not necessarily is the wrong word, not because I have issues with this being like crooked, but because this is an area with a lot of throughput. I'm going to have multiple belts going here, and when I have multiple belts going here, it is quite important for me to be able to get things off the bus easily, because I'm going to have 4 belts going underneath, which is also one thing that I want to address. The belts going underneath this floor, I need to move them. That might sound strange to you guys, but I will demonstrate why. I didn't pick up my stuff. Okay, let's go pick up some concrete. Come on. Actually, I don't need to pick up some concrete. I can show you when we get over here instead. That's probably easier. Let's find some of these belts going underneath. Here we go. This is a part where the belts go underneath, where I have a floor to step on. So if I go down here, and I go to the wall, and then I rebuild the ceiling, now I have an issue. I can't move. And if you do this, if you're really unlucky, you get stuck here and have to definitely remove the one above you. So I want this to be a little bit further down. I don't know if it will suffice with... I know that it will suffice being 1 8x1 foundation further down. That is sufficient, but I might actually want to have it 2 down. I'm not sure. So that's also going to be part of my replanning and rescheduling of this area that I mentioned earlier. There is so much wasted space here, and I never use this thing that I built here, this ramp. When I drive the car, I either drive it off the ramp that I built over there, or I drive it across the entire thing, and there is a ramp that goes off into the desert at the side of the train station. So I don't use that anymore. If I want to go down there, I just walk down, or I use a hypertube to get down there, so it's kind of pointless to have that there. And I also want to have a more consistent hypertube network up here. And I would like to have a more consistent storage facility where I have all the products. So yeah, I have a lot of thinking to do in regards to this area of the base. So I might not have a video for you the day after this one. It might take a couple of days, 2-3 days. Maybe I'll have a video anyways. I don't know. We'll see. I have a lot of things here. I have a lot of work to do here, both thinking, planning, tearing down, reassembling. But it is necessary for the progression of the base, so that is why I'm going to do it, so that the base becomes as efficient as possible. And then we should start on the last tier 7 or tier 6, tier 7 products, which I would then probably call the tier 3 products. We have some of them, which is the heavy modular frames and the computers. But there are several more of them that we don't have, namely the AI limiters, the high-speed connectors, those things that I haven't built yet, supercomputers, turbo motors, useful stuff that I definitely want to make sure that we have built everything. We can check in the parts. Batteries, high-speed connectors, AI limiters, don't have those. Have all of these. We don't have the turbo motor, and we don't have this supercomputer. Yeah, that's it. So we're going to get into that as well, and of course, lest I forget, nuclear. That should be interesting. I haven't done that before. But yes, I highly encourage you to ask questions about the build if you have any. I will reiterate that you can build much simpler, much smaller than what I've done, and I would encourage you to do that in tens. What you need is very simple in terms of the needs that is required for the refinery in that specific case. You need a pipeline of crude oil. If it's a 300 cubic meters pipeline, Mark 1, that will be sufficient to run 10 refineries, making the alternate recipe for heavy oil residue. That will generate 400 heavy oil residue and 200 polymer resin. Next, you're going to need 10 refineries that packages water, so you're going to need empty canisters for that. You may have noticed that I built those at the end. Build them however you feel is most sensible to you. I built them at the end for a reason. And if you're running on experimental, or if you're playing the game after the fluids update have hit the early access branch, you are not going to need refineries doing the packaged water. You're going to need the packagers doing packaged water. For the packagers, you're going to need the water extractors, and I think you need 4 water extractors running at 125%. Otherwise, you're going to need 6. Or 5. 5, I mean 5. 120 times 5 is 600. Equally, 150 times 4 is 600. So you're going to need 4 water extractors for 10 of these. Next, in the production line, you're going to require 10 refineries, even with the fluids update, because these are refining fuel and packaged water into fuel, or rather diluted fuel, but the game doesn't know that apparently, because those canisters are fuel canisters. So you're going to need that as the next part in the chain. The autosave again. And then you're going to need 10 of each of the recycled plastic and the recycled rubber. So I have the recycled plastic here, and I have the recycled rubber here. And those need to be connected up to the fuel from the unpackagers. But I've shown you how you can do that, and just to be sure that you get a refresher on that, 10 of these packagers are unpackaging the diluted fuel into fuel, which is being sent down into a Mark II pipeline, which is full. There is a valve here on a pipe. This is a Mark I pipeline. So there's a valve going out, fueling 5. Then I have an additional junction here, which has another valve sending off to the 5 refineries on the other side, and just repeat this. You can also do this with Mark II pipeline if you want to. I mean that this could be a Mark II pipeline, and I could have made this one a Mark II pipeline and just funnel the pipe off here, taking that over there. But I feel that that is a bit risky. This gives you more control, but the other way should work as well. It's basically a pipeline manifold, more or less. So I like this style where you have 5 and 5 instead of 10 and 10. But you do whatever you please, and what you feel is looking best. But I highly encourage you to use the valves. The valves make sure that everything in this pipeline is pushed over in that pipeline, and that anything in here can't go back there. So the valve is a brilliant little new addition to the game that I'm really, 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 really happy about. So yeah, I think that I have covered everything, and if I should have forgotten anything, please remind me. A huge thank you again to Wally for helping me with the spreadsheet that I needed to wrap my brain around this. Hopefully, Wally, this is going to be the last time that I need your help for this specific chain, because now I actually feel that I have mastered the chain myself, so it was useful for me to build this big as well on a personal level. But Wally really helped me out the first time, and he really helped me out this time as well. I highly encourage you to go check out his channel as well. It is Wally1169. You can also find him in my featured channel part, which has now been moved from the right side of the channels. Expect that to happen on all YouTube channels, because YouTube is moving that for some reason, making us take up real estate space in our channels if we want to recommend someone. But that's fine. So you'll find him in my recommended channels, which is the 9th column, no, the 9th row of stuff on my channel. He has some great content on Satisfactory, and he also plays a lot of similar games to Satisfactory, like Factorio, and he's currently doing a series on Factory Town that I am enjoying immensely. So yeah, go check out Wally. He's a great guy with a great presentation and a great mind, not to understate that. So, any questions or comments, as mentioned, please do leave those in the comments. If you want to, you can also join us in our Discord server, which you will find the link to in my description, in the video description. So for now, thank you all so very much for joining me, and I hope you learned something. I will see you all next time.